Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Nin. I'm the CEO of Snapbrillia. And today I'm going to present about plural voting and identity for DAOs. At Snapbrillia, we'll focus on pioneering a new path to equal opportunities for everyone. You see, the problem is that DAO tooling in and out of Cardano is lacking, and a lot of decentralized autonomous organizations don't have a choice but to resort to one token, one vote, or utilizing some kind of KYC solution to participate in advanced voting. There's concern about the well effect of voting in these cases and tyranny of majority, whether it's with one wallet, one vote, or one person, one vote, or one token, one vote. There's majority of tokens or majority of people or voters pursue exclusively their objectives at the expense of minority factions. Faction control problems have been here since the very beginning. You can see that by James's Madison in Federalist Number 10, which is the papers that influenced the U.S. Revolution, as well as the Constitution. It said the most powerful faction will have control and make decisions based not on the common good, which they've experienced themselves, but to benefit itself. Other groups and the common good will both suffer. And our solution is simply to create open source DAO tooling with proof of reputation on decentralized identity, proof of identity without full KYC requirements, and built-in Sybil attack resistance that you'll see later. And for the DAO governance, to have more advanced features such as democratic voting, one person, one vote, plutocratic, one coin, one vote, and meritocratic, one reputation point, one vote. And as well as enable plural voting, which is most efficient governance for advancing public good, just like issues or proposals related to climate, to open source ecosystem, and others. Cardano is a blockchain of governance. Charles invests heavily in talking to our legislators, and plural voting is not available on any other chain right now. So let's see if this works. Can you guys hear?
Not the video, unfortunately.
Essentially, quadratic voting gives people ability to express their interest on how to vote. And let's say that people have 100 tokens. They can vote for multiple different issues. But here's the thing, right? If they want to cast multiple votes for the same issue, it will cost them more credits, coins, or votes. And the cost is essentially squared. So you can see if one vote is one cost, 3 votes is 9, and then 4 would be 16, and so on and so forth. So in some versions of quadratic and plural voting, there is a person has to express the preference on which issues or proposals they want to vote on, especially in a DAO governance, right? And that means they can express their interest and intensity of priority. And this, of course, prevents winner-takes-all situations. So for example, in one person, one vote, there's only one vote per person. And usually what happens is that will lead to outcomes that are always preferred by the majority. So quadratic and plural voting comes with a cost of prioritization, for example. Like I mentioned, plural quadratic voting can be used to advance, a smart nation, stronger economy, stronger workforce, stronger society and community, as well as build green and sustainable future. So make it count. Thank you. It's my best way of
Well
interpretation in a
done.
live video.
That was really well done.
Thank
That was
you.
really well done.
So why is this important, right? As a DAO is built, you have the initial core team of founding team members, and of course, they usually hold a lot of tokens. I bet Charles has a ton of ADA at this moment, right? And then their interest is to really get the next group of casual contributors, and then as the DAO grows, there's more and more utility for people. But if it's one coin, one vote, right? They may not have as much say in the direction of the DAO, and therefore, if a DAO, for example, one token, one vote would make a lot of sense at the beginning, but as the DAO gets bigger and bigger and the community grows, and of course, a lot of DAOs are formed around missions and passion, and the founding team they want to incentivize adoption, so they may want to switch to quadratic voting, incentivize even, like, for example, have more governance power for people. Here's a symbol resistance demo. So you can see $1, one vote, one person, one vote voting influence, and quadratic voting is pretty much balances the power, the voting power between individuals as well as tokens. And it just builds a fair government system for a successful DAO that wants to grow really quickly. One of the issues with quadratic plural voting is Sybil attacks. So people can just create multiple accounts, right, and split their voting power, and then go in and still get more voting power. You can see. Here's a governance C voting system, which is fully decentralized Sybil resistant quadratic voting system. There's a probabilistic quadratic voting, which essentially makes it so hard every time that someone splits their wallet, then their ultimate voting power, right, is going to be lowered instead of if they voted with only one wallet. There's been a lot of Pareto research done already, and compared to the regular just basic quadratic voting and plural voting, Sybil resistance have been proved with this method. This is fully decentralized. Again, it doesn't rely on one organization to be able to have to control all of this stuff. And you can see that in 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 this method, it does use the Chainlink VRF. We are actually porting this to Cardano and utilizing the Cardano VRF, which is very similar to what actually what the proof of staking is using to know which node had the right to mint the block or not. And of course, we'll apply high level of decentralization. Here's a quick demo. Please watch it later. Right, I'll share the links in the slide. But why now? It is because in the past year, right, the DAOs have increased in volume, in number, as well as in activity, about 8 to 9 times, right? DAO tooling solutions have also increased in revenue tremendously. Timing is everything, of course, right? Like I mentioned, DAOs are quite similar to Catalyst, so we're trying to build this to empower all different communities, organizations to want to come to Cardano and build their solution on Cardano, because we'll give them governance systems and with Sybil resistance that no other chain can. So why us? We've been already funded in Fund 8 for quadratic voting and funding, which is open source. We received over 608 unique wallets that voted. We have a huge engineering team, including Atala Prism Astros, 20 Plutus program pioneers and developers, as well as we're the ATX hackathon winners with a pretty sizable team. We're part of the DAO Alliance, right? Which actually just formed to push and build DAO tooling and push DAOs for the whole ecosystem, Cardano ecosystem especially forward. I have an awesome team. Frank, my co-founder, he used to be a CEO at Eucratic DAO, so we have a lot of experience with building DAO. So now we're partnering with, ADAO and Clear Contracts and M Labs and others to bring this to the community. We're not bots, of course. If you want to see us in person, this is us at Consensus. We have an awesome advisors team, including my previous co-founder, who has almost 14,000 citations, and Mark, who's used to be a CTO at Microsoft. And of course, we're part of SeedStars and Launchhouse, which are accelerators and incubators to make this go to market. So thank you. Please vote. I really appreciate everyone's support and help. And I'm opening up for questions.
Thank you so much for that, Nin. Thank you so much for this specific tooling, to be precise, because I'm sure you understand that Konma is heavily dependent on the idea of a DAO. So your tool will definitely help us reach that point. And I'm super happy to have Snapbrillia as a part of this amazing journey. So I do have a few questions. In the meantime, if anyone else in the audience also has a question, just raise your hands by pressing the emoji key there. So my question is basically, everyone knows that the idea of DAOs is blowing up right now. It was NFTs, and before that it was fungible tokens. So we are now at the state of DAOs. And there are few ideas or research papers, you could call it, where if it would be possible to give in the tokens that govern a certain DAO to other DAOs instead of a wallet. So at the end of it, it is going to be a contract address that is going to be the treasury, but something of a double DAO system as coined by M Labs in Fund 7. And they were also working on something similar along those lines. So would you say this is something that we could solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this comes down to support for tokens that a particular DAO wants to utilize for their members to vote. With this DAO tooling, this is a little bit out of scope for this proposal, but it is possible to customize, essentially give the option for the DAO to customize what they want to essentially assign voting power to and what they want to include in the pool of for quadratic voting or one token, one vote, or whatever they have, right? Reputation-based voting is essentially voting based on the number of verified credentials or reputation points, which ultimately is a token, right? One way or the other. And someone asked me to Boss DAO, which is part of Cardano DAO Alliance, is actually using NFTs where they assign voting power to NFTs. So there, whatever token you use, whether it's NFT or whether it's a DAO token and a Konma token, right, a gimbal token, you could have both. The tricky part is how would you determine voting power, right? Is one gimbal token equivalent to one Cardano token or ADA token, for example, if you use both for voting, right? And of course, we do have partnerships with Charlie C3. They do have a free tier, but if people have a huge DAO, let's say 10,000 members and 10,000, votes every month, every month is fine. But if they vote like every day, right, or multiple times a day, then even querying an oracle to determine like the exchange rates between different tokens, and some tokens may not even be listed publicly, so it has to be done manually. Right? I hope that answers your question. It is possible, and it's not very hard to do.
I'm so sorry, I was on mute. So yes, I believe Curb had another question as well, which is D Curb. So off you go, my friend.
Oh yeah. So I just wanted to ask. So Snapbrillia is basically creating a framework of DAO. So that means other protocols can use that DAO for their own thing, for their own governance, or is it like creating a specific empowering voting system, like as a decentralized mechanism for DAOs, which other protocols can use? So it's like an open source thing, or will it be like a service thing? Like how will it work?
It is open source. This is essentially we have already been funded for open source plural voting and quadratic voting in Fund 8. However, the GitHub repository is live. However, um, you know, it is built. We're building it for our own platform, snapbrillia.com, and it's not made modular for the community to use. So this proposal is to make that modular, add Sybil attack resistance, which is very much needed, and then wrap it into a DAO tooling solution for ADAO and Clarity. Actually, Clarity and ADAO have both approached us and like, hey, Nin, Snapbrillia, can we actually use your plural and quadratic voting and integrate it with our DAO tooling? I'm like, yeah, awesome. Let's make it a community solution, right? Anyone can actually go on our repo and using this, they can, if they have developers, they would be able to integrate it and build their own DAO tooling if they want to. Or if they don't want to build a DAO tooling solution, they can just go to a DAO Clarity or one of the others to set up a DAO with such governance system. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next up, we have George. I'm sure this is going to be a fascinating question. So let's hear the George.
Hey, George.
Thanks, Sangeet. Thanks. Good morning, then. Yeah, great presentation. Good to have your kickoff. Question on from the quadratic voting perspective as well as from the DREPs. So I'm trying to understand the relation between the two. Quadratic voting, we are trying to bring down the voting power, and with the DREP, we are trying to bring the power to fewer points. So how do you see this how do you see this journey?
Yeah, DREPs is essentially to incentivize people and give ability for people who don't have in Catalyst, right? So this tooling is specifically for DAOs, but your question is how does DREP interact with quadratic voting specifically, right? So not as much related to this proposal, but we hope that with this proposal, with Sybil attack resistance that's decentralized, fully functioning, and so on, Catalyst would be open to actually adopting quadratic voting, perhaps for some of its more public goods challenges, and that's something that we've heard even on the DREPS workshop. So how would liquid democracy and plural quadratic voting relate? Well, first of all, they're not mutually exclusive. You can combine them both. For example, so DREPS is designed to incentivize more wallets that register to vote in Catalyst to actually vote by delegating their voting power, or give pass to people who have less than 500 ADA who can't vote in Catalyst to be able to be represented in Catalyst, right? The 500 ADA and all the other kind of like methods and security methods is to prevent Sybil attacks and so on, such as proof of stake, also to prevent Sybil attacks. But if we are able to build in the Sybil attack resistance, right, just like you saw, we would be able to introduce a new governance system where DREPs can still have delegations from others, but when they do vote, they vote in a quadratic governance, right? Not one token, one vote. So this type of governance actually incentivizes every individual to get involved, because if they do get involved, then their voting power, whether it's, you know, one vote or 100 votes, it matters much more than if it was, you know, one token, one vote. I hope that answers your question, George.
Yeah.
They can be
Thanks, Lynn.
combined.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Nin. We are kind of back in time, like you guys know. So, Krish and Dylan, I really request you guys to just hold up your question till the end of the session, and I'll give you a separate room with you and Nin. You can have all your questions cleared.
Awesome.
So, thank you so much for that, Nin.